Welcome to How It Works. On today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at ClauseBuddy from the company ClauseBase, an AI-powered drafting toolbox that works as a plugin within Microsoft Word. And joining me to tell us about it and show us how it works is Senne Mennes, the co-founder of ClauseBase. Senne, welcome.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Before we get into the demonstration, why don't you tell us about your company and what you do?
Yeah, so we're ClauseBase, and we've developed ClauseBuddy, which is a Microsoft Word add-in that helps lawyers with all of the various challenges that they face in the drafting and reviewing process. So finding clauses from their drafting history, generating first draft, redlining documents, reviewing documents, proofreading, all of those different things.
All right, why waste any further time? Why don't we just jump right into the demo and show us how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. For today, we're focusing on a couple of our really popular tools, but this is by no means the full product, which is something that we can see in the longer video that you and I have both done together. So we'll start with clause extraction from your drafting history. So ClauseBuddy is able to hook into your own drafting history from your organization and quickly retrieve clauses from there. We call that our truffle hunt functionality. And basically what we can do is we can just use keywords, like for example, let's go with liability. And then naturally we're going to have quite a few different results depending on what sort of area of our drafting history that we are searching in. We can filter those results down based on the metadata attached to the documents where these clauses are contained. So I could say, for example, I only want clauses from this party, and maybe, I also only want clauses that are relatively shorter in length or a little bit longer maybe. And in any case, I can go through the filters that way. I can even provide a natural language search for the AI to really zoom in on that one clause that I need. But then if I found a useful clause, I can just make a little bit of space in my document and insert that straight away. And the neat thing about this is that ClauseBuddy is able to treat these clauses as chameleons, which means that they automatically adapt to the styling and formatting and layout of the document that they are being entered into. And what's more, not just from a styling perspective, but also from a substantive perspective, we can have the AI make certain modifications to this clause before inserting it. Like we could include a custom redrafting instruction to make it a little bit more in line with what we're looking for. We can even have it automatically adapt to the terminology, et cetera, et cetera. And so that is, in a nutshell, what the truffle hunt can do. The kind of related functionality of the truffle hunt is the quality library, which is a separate curated clause library that teams can also build to standardize clauses a little bit and to provide additional context and background information on which clauses to use in which situation, because obviously this is primarily geared towards finding the needle in the haystack, or in our case, the truffle in the forest. But yeah, that's in a nutshell what we do when it comes to helping lawyers find useful clauses.
Yeah, real quick question for you, Senne. On the truffle hunt, and it goes against your drafting history. Where's it getting that drafting history? Where's it getting access to what you've done in the past?
Yeah. We integrate with a number of different document management solutions. Think iManage, even SharePoint too, for example. But lawyers can also create a more curated library of precedent documents straight within ClauseBuddy itself. Moving on to my next functionality, we're looking at AI-powered redlining. So imagine you are going through a document, you've received this document from a third party, and there are certain changes that you would like to see, but you're not quite sure how to phrase it, or you'd like a quicker way of making those changes. What we can do is we can take text, and I'm using a single clause now because that'll be a little bit quicker for the demonstration purposes, but we can also do that on the level of an entire document. And what we can do there is we can rewrite this text with the help of AI. Here you'll see that we end up in a kind of workbench where we can do all sorts of different manipulations with the text. The most obvious being that we can just provide a quick prompt to clarify what the changes that we would like to make. In our case, let's go with include termination for cause insolvency or something, right? The fact that termination can also happen in case of insolvency. And then we'll just ask the AI to redraft this, and then it'll show up, as you can see, in a sort of additional paragraph in track changes. And you'll also note that it automatically adjusts the terminology to fit the document that we're working with. For example, I did not specify that this should be the license contract, but obviously because that is the terminology that we use in the document, it automatically adopts that. And again, we can just insert that in track changes. And immediately, because of the layout awareness that ClauseBuddy has, which means that it can play very nicely with existing styling of the document, it'll just drop that new text in there and automatically update the numbering as necessary, but also align it with the numbering that we have in our document already. So that's, in a nutshell, the AI-powered redlining. Again, there's more that we can show there, but we're doing the brief summary there. Any questions so far?
Just when you're generating that suggested text to add in the insolvency language, that's being generated from scratch. That's not being drawn from your drafting history or your library or preferred clauses, right?
No, indeed. And that's actually a good question to ask, because that is another approach that we do have when it comes to redrafting clauses and things like that. What we can also do is we can search for alternative clauses inside of our curated library or inside of our drafting history using the auto suggest. And in that case, it'll look through our existing knowledge library and it'll provide clauses that relate to the clauses that we have, and we can make compares, and we can then insert that material in there as well. And we have a little bit of a way to leverage our existing knowledge that way.
Yeah, that's useful. And that's why I asked, because I knew you had that other option as well.
Yep, exactly. So that brings us to AI-powered reviewing and proofreading, because when we talk about ClauseBuddy being a drafting toolbox, we consider that in the broad sense. So we consider reviewing and redlining as well, obviously, to be part of the drafting process. And what we can do here is we can do two things. We can do open-ended document reviewing, where we just say in here under my document chat module, I can say, I represent the licensor, flag any problematic provisions. And that's great. And I'll turn off the concise option here to get a full overview. That's great if I need a sparring partner, someone to do a quick check for me inside of this document. But this is an open-ended reviewing, so I am leaving a lot of room for imagination to the AI. These items that the AI comes back with may all be very useful, but they are probably going to be different every time I ask the question, because that is how generative AI works. And I also didn't really define what I consider to be problematic. And so if I'm reviewing the same type of document more frequently, it makes a lot of sense to, instead of using this sort of open-ended review, to use a more closed review where we predefine the items that the AI needs to check for. And we can do that here in the form of playbooks. I have quite a few different playbooks for quite a few different documents, but we're working with a license agreement here. So let's use that as our baseline. These are the typical issues that I want the AI to check for when I am reviewing my license agreements. And so as the AI is going through this license agreement and cross-referencing it with the requirements I've set out in my playbook, so a predetermined list of issues that I want the AI to check for, it's going to give me a list of sort of red flags and green flags where I can see exactly what the requirement was that the AI checked for. In my case, it says the applicable law has to be German law, competent courts those of Berlin, and we can see that it says the agreement specifies that the contract is governed by the laws of Australia. Competent courts, those of Sydney. We can click through to that and then indeed see laws of Australia, courts of Sydney. And then again, we can just have the AI make the necessary changes to fit the requirements that we have made beforehand. And you can see that come in now. And again, we can then just insert that text. And we can run those rewrites across individual requirements, or we can apply them to the entire document in one go. We can also export this report that the AI has given us. Maybe if we want to communicate that to our client, maybe internally, we can extract those results. So we have some options to facilitate the review.
Just a quick question, just to clarify, or maybe a point of clarification. When you're talking about the playbooks, these are playbooks that your customers, your users are able to create themselves. This is not playbooks that you ship with the product or something like that, right?
Yeah, so we do offer a couple of template playbooks, but indeed the main premise is for our clients to be able to use their own. And they can do so by creating these requirements individually, but they can also do so by uploading their standard templates for specific documents and letting the AI draft a playbook on the basis of the requirements that are contained therein. So that basically brings us to the final functionality that I wanted to take a quick look at, which is document automation, something that ClauseBuddy also offers in the form of our smart templates functionality. And for those of you who have seen document automation in the past, this will be a very familiar site. So here I have my own license agreement again, which we've automated before. And yeah, this is basically right what document automation looks like. You have your questionnaire on the left-hand side, and you fill out some information in that questionnaire, and immediately that information appears on the right-hand side. Naturally, there's more that we can do here than just filling out placeholders. We can also include certain commercial or legal conditionality. Like here, for example, right, this license can be remunerated or it can not be remunerated. And if we change that question from yes to no, you can see that a bunch of different changes occur throughout the document here. A couple of definitions drop out of the definition list. A word is altered. A paragraph is removed from a clause is removed in its entirety, just with one question being answered in a different way. The big challenge with document automation in the past has always been that it is pretty tricky to set up, but here also our AI integrations can help make that process a little bit easier. For example, here, if we want to say this is a precedent license contract and we'd like to use this as the basis for an automation, we can just have the AI prepare the document for automation. And then immediately it'll mark up all of the relevant placeholders, as you can see here inside of this document, which we can then use to upload this document. Naturally, the AI has then found all of the variables, but it still hasn't created a questionnaire. Even that can be done automatically with the help of the AI. So it'll take this random list of individual placeholders and it'll subdivide them neatly according to the category that they belong to. And so as soon as that comes in, you can see that we've basically automated an entire document, something that would ordinarily have taken us a couple of hours maybe. We've automated that entirely. And again, if we fill out some information on the left-hand side, immediately you can see that information appears on the right. Any questions on that?
No, I don't have any questions on that. Great.
Okay, wonderful. That is the high-speed walkthrough of ClauseBuddy. Obviously, like I said before, there is more to what this toolbox has to offer, more tools in the toolbox. But I would say that these are definitely some of the more popular, more frequently used tools that we have on offer.
Yeah, I just want to double click on that because I want to emphasize to people watching this right now that we also have an hour-long video you can find here on our YouTube channel that goes into much greater depth. We talked about this at the outset as a toolbox, and it really is an array of tools. It's a really impressive array of tools. So I encourage people watching this, if this is at all of interest to you, go back and watch the longer video. Or how can they get in touch with you directly or get their own demo?
If you go to our website, ClauseBase.com, you are welcome to book a demo with our sales team, or you can reach out to me personally over LinkedIn.
Great. Senne, thanks so much for giving us that very quick run through today. And I really appreciate it. Always a pleasure to talk and really impressive product.
Thank you, Bob, and likewise.
And that does it for today's episode of How It Works. You can find the full series on YouTube. Just search for How It Works on YouTube or at directory.lawnext.com in the resources library. You can find it all there. This is Bob Ambrogi. That's it for today's show.